Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey. Welcome back to the Second Act podcast with Michael and John. John, I know you've been on the road doing some fun stuff. How's life?
It's good, Michael. I just got back from taking my family on the road for the last week. We hit up Yellowstone and Bozeman, Montana, and Big Sky, and then we finished in the Grand Tetons, and then sped back here last night to make it for today's call. But man, reinvigorated because the national parks, it's what a beauty to behold out there. I mean, yeah, it gets packed with people and crowded, but man, there's enough out there for everyone to see and enjoy. So not that this is a promotion to go out and see the national parks, but it was a pretty fun trip, especially with my 8 and 10-year-old boys and my wife next to me in the car. So man, it was a blast. So I'm kind of on a high right now. Not that I'm going to come down off that high, but I'm excited. I'm excited for this week to play out. How about you?
Yeah, I just continuing to enjoy the summer. I've spent a little time myself up in the Teton Mountain area, Jackson, Wyoming. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I know every time I come back from spending time out in nature, I feel energized and recentered. So I'm a little envious of your road trip there. I'll have to put it on the list because I haven't been there with the family. It's been with friends in the past, so have to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, the last part of our trip was a Friday night rodeo in Big Sky, and nothing screams more Americana than a rodeo up there in Montana.
Yep.
Man, it was awesome. Highlight of that portion of the trip, a lot of fun. My boys are like, Dad, I want to be a cowboy now. It's like, well, we got to make some changes if that's going to occur. But yeah.
No, I wish we had a picture of you to do some promo of you riding a bull. Is there anything like that we could use? All right, that's too bad. All right, well, one important thing, John, we have another winner. We always like to give a shout out to our weekly giveaway. This one's to Maya. So congrats, Maya.
Hey,
you'll be getting something Maya. In your inbox very shortly as we pay it forward each week. Yep. And another exciting guest today. Do you want to introduce our guest, John?
Man, I'd love to. I'd love to have the honor because today we welcome to the show Kasey Stewart. You know, I'm excited about this show because he hails from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I was born and raised. But Kasey is the innovative founder of 2 companies, Bad Mouth Candy, an organic, all-natural, low-sugar candy brand, as well as the digital agency he calls StewHouse Media. Kasey's got over 15 years of experience in creative vision and strategy, and his expertise in authentic storytelling can be found through his work with global brands and celebrities that include, these are some big names, Samsung, Adidas, Nokia, Netflix, Zac Efron, Kate Upton, Lily Reinhart, and Patrick Schwarzenegger. So I'm sure people will recognize a lot of those.
A couple of them, yeah.
Kasey also co-founded the nonprofit Book and a Ball, providing books and sports equipment to orphans worldwide.
Cool.
In his personal time, Kasey enjoys traveling, where he holds a Guinness World Record for the fastest person to touch all 7 continents, which blows my mind. And outdoor activities.
You got to learn more about that.
Yeah, which keep him all energized. So, man, welcome to the show, Kasey.
Welcome, Kasey.
Guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Geez, every paragraph that I just read off has 6 questions that I want to ask you. I don't know if we're going to have time for all this, but
Sometimes I do feel like I've lived 9 lives in my current life because there's a lot of different chapters in there for sure.
yeah. So let me just start, Kasey. Where are you on the show from right now?
Currently in Los Angeles, California, on the west side in
Very
Marina
nice.
Del Rey.
Marina Del Rey. All right. Well, man, I alluded to it before. You're from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, pretty much. I was born in Orange County, but I was 8 years old. My dad had a job transfer and the family moved out, and he picked Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Really picked it because Victory Christian School was there and wanted the kids to be in a Christian school.
Okay.
And so we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma when I was 8 and lived and grew up in Tulsa from about 8 to 25.
Wow.
Yeah, what brought you back to the coast?
Yeah, so obviously grew up in Tulsa, went to Victory Christian School, went to Oral Roberts University, played a year of basketball, went a second year, and then left, and then was just working. Started doing graphic design in Tulsa, started a small little agency doing website design, graphic design, launching
Nice.
WordPress websites actually. And that was about 3-4 years in, and wanted to move out to the West Coast and get into advertising, get into bigger brand stuff. So I had the graphic design skill and wanted to move out here to the West Coast. And so my cousin used to live in San Clemente because we're from, Orange County area where I was born. And he got a tennis scholarship to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo on the Central Coast.
All right.
Beautiful area out there. And I think, I hadn't traveled all that much at this time living in Tulsa. And when you think of California and LA at the time, I mean, this was, what is this, like probably 15 years ago now, 16 years ago. You think about Hollywood, LA, and just that. But I flew out and saw him at his university playing tennis in this small town on the Central Coast, which is just 3 hours north of where I'm at now. Beautiful rolling hills, wine country, ocean, no traffic. And anyways, I went out there and visited him. And I was like, this is just beautiful out here. There was an advertising agency that was out there, a pretty small independent one at the time. And went out there and visited and never went back.
Dude, I completely understand where you're coming from because a little bit different than you. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but my first duty station was in San Diego, California. And I remember showing up there and I thought to myself, my parents failed me because I should have been raised on the West Coast in San Diego. This is my home. This is my vibe. This is where I feel like I should be all the time, and so I get that. That's awesome.
San Diego's a great vibe as well. I like it down there.
Yeah, Kasey, we're both based here in Colorado, and I've heard from a buddy of mine who loves San Luis Obispo. He refers to it as like the Boulder of California. I don't know if it has the same vibe and scenery. He's shown me some pictures, but definitely looks like a pretty cool place to visit.
It does, and I've been to Boulder, and I would say definitely very similar. Very active outdoor lifestyle, a lot of trails. And there's just, people like being outdoors there. I mean, obviously there's a surf community there, paddleboarding, water sports, and then just some beautiful countryside out there as well. So,
Nice.
a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I would say, Michael, I'd say the communities are almost exactly the same. Just swap the ocean for the mountains. I mean, it's same vibe. You just wear more clothes out here,
Exactly.
That's right.
And you guys get winter sports
That's right.
out there. And in San Luis Obispo, you get the
nice.
winter swell.
Yeah. Okay.
So winter surf.
Yeah.
Kasey, you've shared with us sort of like your early journey back and forth between California and Oklahoma and then back. And I'm curious, like we touched on the Guinness Book of Records at the beginning, and that's really piqued my curiosity. What sort of went into touching the 7 continents and how did that get measured? And do you still hold that record? I know it was a record at one point. It'd be awesome to hear a little more about that.
For sure, we can jump into it. So I moved out to California, and I had that small advertising agency that was in Tulsa whenever I was out there. When I moved out, I got a job at a big brand advertising agency. And I started pretty much ground level as a junior designer in my early 20s out there in San Luis Obispo, and loved it. Loved the advertising industry. I had pretty much ended up being a 10-year career with them. And that advertising agency in San Luis Obispo was somewhat of a smaller independent one, but it was a really good one. And we ended up getting acquired. And the way the advertising industry works, all of them are pretty much owned by one of the 4 big advertising conglomerate umbrella agencies. There's Publicis Group, Intercom, and they all wrap up all these advertising agencies underneath it. And we got acquired twice whenever I was there. And so our smaller advertising agency became one of the top 10. It was, wrapped up into one of the other ones that was one of the top 10 biggest advertising agencies in the U.S. So I ended up having this really great and fun and incredible career in advertising, working my way up from junior designer to, at the end, I was group creative director and VP of creative over our Samsung North America account, which we started from zero, ended up being $25 million a year in revenue.
Whoa.
We were shooting commercials for them, broadcast commercials, doing their digital content. So I went from like graphic design, and through this 10-year career was directing commercials, creative, doing all the creative on
Very
it.
cool.
30, 40 people on the team. Really, really fun career that I had there doing this. With that came, with over 10 years, I kind of started getting burnt out. It's long hours, it's a grind. I was traveling a lot, New York, Austin, LA, all these different places, and had gotten burnt out. The other thing too is I started to become a one-trick pony in advertising. I was really good at directing these commercials, a certain style, what we were doing. And so I felt like my career was starting to get really more narrow into this one specific niche. I had saved up a good amount of money, and I just was starting to get this itch and this stir to do this, sell everything and go travel.
Nice.
I just felt like I wasn't experienced much out of life. I hadn't traveled all that much. I traveled a little bit. And so anyways, about 10 years after a 10-year career in advertising, decided to do the thing where he sold everything. This was in 2017, I believe. Sold everything and decided to start traveling. No idea how long I was going to travel. And I was going to chase the sun as far as like how it goes, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and took off traveling. About 6 months into the traveling, I was like, I want a project or something that will push me, something that I can plan, something I'm looking forward to, because everything was just kind of like off the whim of where I was going to go, what I was going to do. And I saw an article pop up that these guys touched 5 continents within 24 hours, which is fairly easier because you can kind of stay up in the Northern Hemisphere if you don't touch South America and Antarctica. So they were able to stay up top. Istanbul is actually a city that is 2 continents on one.
Okay.
There's Asia and Europe that's there in the same. So there's a way to do it with 5 continents. Like, oh, that's interesting. I touched it 5 continents. I'm traveling and I have like time at this point in my life. And so I started to think, I wonder what the fastest somebody is that's touched all 7 continents. I started looking it up, and nobody had set the record yet.
Okay.
And Guinness had put out that to get the record, you needed to do it faster than 100 hours. Okay. Just like that was the bar that they set, meaning that if you did it over 6 months, that's not really a record that's like worth putting into a book or whatever. So anyways, I reached out to Guinness and got their backing behind it, which required me to wear a GPS tracker to have it on the phone. Okay. So GPS tracker, they required photo or video evidence in each continent. So a photo or video taken. I had to get a signature of somebody in authority in each continent, which meant a police officer, like somebody in government. So like TSA officials I was able to do. Okay. So a signature from everywhere. And then I started just planning the project and the route. I started, I reversed it in that the hardest part is to get down to Antarctica.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And so there's no airport that's down there. You land on the Chilean Air Force Base on a gravel runway, dirt runway. And there's only a couple expedition companies that will do flights down there. So the hardest part was like that last flight getting to Antarctica. So I started planning with them. I actually put together a pitch deck, got it to their CEO, and they sponsored that Antarctica part of just like the flight over, and it include like a week-long expedition cruise whenever we were down there. They sponsored that last part, and then I backed up all the flights, literally using Google Flights, of what was the fastest route I could do, and backed it all the way up to where my starting point was, which was Sydney, Australia.
Nice. Wow. Do you have any challengers to this record yet that haven't been able to beat you?
The record has since been broken. So we ended up doing it, and we set the record. So initially the project was called 7 in 72, 7 continents in 72 hours. Okay. The route that I had was going to get us there in 69 hours with some time to, a few hours to spare. And to get the record, they said that all the wheels just had a touchdown on each continent, but we wanted to leave the airport and do a cultural activity in each place. So I had this route that started in Sydney, Australia. We obviously spent some time in Sydney before, but started in Sydney, Australia. I went to Cairo, Egypt, We had a limo that picked us up in the middle of the night, took us over to Burj Al Arab, got out, took some photos, rushed back to the airport, landed in Cairo, Egypt, first thing in the morning in 8-hour rush hour traffic. I had their TSA and kind of government behind it. They were waiting for us with golf carts. We're going through the airport, honking the horns. Everybody's clearing out. Had a taxi waiting for us. It took us to the Citadel, old city on the hill. Saw the pyramids off in the distance. Took some photos, videos. Rushed back. They were holding the plane. We were late actually getting back because we hit really bad traffic. So they were holding the plane. TSA told them to. Like the airlines were behind it. So it was like this rush. It was like a hurry up and wait thing because then once we got on the plane, then you're flying. But we went to Frankfurt, Germany. Got off. Went to downtown and got beer and bratwurst at a local pub.
Nice.
Their whole pub that was waiting for us when we got there, and our beer and bratwurst were on the table and chugged with the thing. So we did a cultural activity in each place. Went over to Toronto, Canada, ice skating in the ice skating rink because of the middle of winter there. Went down to Santiago, Chile. At this point, we realized we were going to make it to Antarctica, and we couldn't travel with luggage or any check stuff. So we just had these small carry-on bags. So in Santiago, we had the longest layover of 6 hours. And we went shopping for coats and winter stuff because we were going to be in Antarctica soon. Yeah. So we landed. So then from Santiago, you have to go down to the small town of Punta Arenas, Chile. And Punta Arenas is where they take these expedition flights over to Antarctica. When we landed in Punta Arenas, we were on track. Surprisingly, all these flights had lined up because our biggest, risk was a flight getting delayed, canceled too much. And when one domino falls, the rest of it falls.
You're done.
So that was the risk. So we made it all the way down to the city where the last flight, on time, everything there. And so we get there, meet up at a hotel. You meet in these conference rooms with all the other expedition people are going. Obviously, there's this whole trip that's going of people already there. And we had a few hours where we were going to be able to sleep and then get on this expedition flight. And it's very dependent upon weather is one thing. And so when we first got there, they said, sorry, guys. And we got there with probably in about 60 hours, we got down to Chile. And there was a few hours that we were going to have there on the ground. And then there's, a few hour flight over. We were going to make it and break the 72 hours. And we first got there, they said there's a slight delay because there's a snowstorm down in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yep. Fine. We just needed to beat 100 hours. Just needed to beat 100. Wanted to beat 72. But anywhere between 72 and 100, we still get the record. So we get there. Snowstorm, can't go. Okay. And then finally, they'll wake you up in the middle of the night because it's all just dependent upon all these variables. And finally, weather's cleared. Guys, we're pulling the planes out of the hangars. We're getting everything ready. Get your stuff packed, get ready to go. Great. About 45 minutes later, call us back in. Hey, guys, you're not going to believe it. But when they were pulling the airplanes out of the hangars, there's two of them. They hit the tails.
Come on.
Oh. And they showed us a photo on a PowerPoint because people were saying it over from the hangar right there. Showed us a photo, and they literally poked a hole in the tail of one of the planes.
Done.
So it was about another 10, 12-hour delay before they brought in another airplane. The weather was still cleared. Long story short, we took off with 89 hours and landed in 92 hours, 4 minutes, and 19 seconds.
Okay. Solid.
So so I say that, and that's why we held the record, and I'm in the book right here. I have the book on my wall here.
Sure.
But we're in the book in the 2020 Guinness Book of World Record book. And it's been beaten since.
Okay.
I believe a woman from India did it, and she did it, I think it was in 78 or 82 hours, a few years after we did it.
Okay.
So,
wow.
It was a record that we kind of pioneered and set. So I was the first one to do it and set it. She beat it. And there is a little bit inside of me, because I know it can be done in less than 72, that kind of wants to go back after it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Man.
That's an awesome story.
Let me ask you, Kasey, could you have started in Antarctica and worked your way back?
Correct. You can. And I think that that's what the other woman did, is reversed it.
Yeah.
Again, you're hitting the variables on the other side too of even starting. So my thought was, let's get down there, and it worked out in our favor, because if I had been reversed, if there was a snowstorm down there we couldn't take off, everything else wouldn't even be able to get started because you missed the rest of them. But no, it is a strategy of how to do it, is that you could reverse it and start in Antarctica.
Interesting.
Let me ask you, did you do this all by yourself, or did you have a support team, or how do you go about? I mean, I know you were starting to work with agencies, and you said countries were actually, jumping in, and airlines, but I can't imagine you are doing this all by yourself.
I did do it all by myself.
Wow.
And I was traveling at the time, if you think about it. So I did have I was full-time traveling, and I was filming and just doing content and video work and doing different stuff. Like, not even work. It was just, for personal and for documenting it and everything.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time on my hands, if you think about it. And I did. I planned everything myself. Personally, it cost me almost $20,000 in our flights and accommodations. So I brought a girl with me. Surprisingly, I didn't even know her all that well. We had a lot of mutual friends online. We had connected on social. We were talking. She was traveling full time, and I knew she was like very adventurous. She's somebody that had the time to go and do this. And I asked her if she wanted to do it with me. She said, yeah. We had only met one time before in Auckland, New Zealand.
Amazing.
And she went and did this trip with me.
I love that.
But I had planned it all right up until I had asked her about a month before. And no, I did everything from obviously booking the flights on Google Flight. I paid for it, like I was saying, about $20,000 in all-in cost. The expedition company had sponsored about $20,000 worth of the expedition costs, because that is about $10,000 per person. And I contacted Cairo's airport, just the very practical walkthrough stuff of contacting Cairo airport. I had this deck that I would send out and talk about press and media and this kind of stuff. And some airports didn't really take it serious and give me the time of day. Others, like Cairo, took it like a politician was coming through and really rolled out the red carpet and parted the sea for us as we came through. So some of them, it really helped. But yeah, I had a deck that I would send through to them, tell them what we're doing, and a lot of people got behind it.
So, Kasey, you sharing that story, obviously it reveals a lot of what we described in your bio about authentic storytelling. I mean, you've just sort of led us through a really cool part of your life novel, if you will. Yeah. And I guess in that, when you felt the burnout, and he's like, I'm going to hit the road and then do something crazy, like try to set a Guinness Book of World Record, and then achieve that. Reflecting on that whole experience before you started some of the new things, what were like a couple of the key things you took away from that after spending, a lot of time on the grind at work?
Yeah, it was just nice to, for one, is like traveling that much in that short period of time gives you a very clear worldview and perspective.
Yeah.
Just living in America, in the grind, head down, so laser focused, and even laser focused within laser focus on a specific industry, doing a specific thing.
Yeah.
To take a step back and to go around the world. And I had traveled obviously a lot of time around that and gone around the world. I've gone to all 7 continents twice, actually.
Oh, cool.
I took a boat over to Antarctica again, another time. And so, but to go around the world, especially within a condensed time period, it gives you such a good, clear world perspective on how we live in America, how we act. I mean, I've never been self-conscious in my life about speaking only one language until I traveled this much.
Yep.
Yeah. And people ask all the time, like, do you speak multiple languages? Like, no, I'm still learning English. And it's not something that I'm proud of, but it's just kind of like, in America, it's the center of our map. We're like, we think everything revolves around us.
Yep.
So to take a step back from that and to have a broad worldview, to see how people look at us, to see how people live in so many other countries across the world, from third world all the way up to more progressive countries and stuff, has just changed my outlook on life. It's changed the way on everything that I do to this point, to where I think in a broader global scale, I feel like, than I did before when it was so narrow and so focused on one single thing.
I love that. And having worked a little bit overseas, not in anything too crazy, over in the UK and some of Western Europe, I definitely appreciate the perspective that they shared on sort of the American way of business and how different it is from how they do business in Europe and then other parts of the world. In grad school, we also went to China and learned some of the Asian cultural practices when it comes to business, which can be significantly different in how they approach the relationships, both personally and from a business perspective. So I can totally agree with you. It's getting that perspective is just super helpful, I think, in terms of how you think about the world.
For sure. I mean, the thing about America, and I know we'll talk about startup culture and entrepreneurship and different stuff like that, but it's a pro and a con. I think it's one of your greatest strengths, is one of your greatest weaknesses, is that, we're probably we grind so hard, and it's ingrained in our culture for excelling, getting, achieving more. And that's what makes America what it is today, I think, in one sense, right? Which is a great thing. But then it's also, if you start looking at personal happiness, fulfillment and different things like that. You go to Europe, and especially like Scandinavian countries, and a lot of they have this thing of like, don't excel above everybody else. Even like somebody that works at a convenience store is making $30-something an hour, like in Sweden, say, and they're making a good living, not worrying about rent or food, and they take 2 to 3 months of holiday a year, and they just live this pretty good, straightforward lifestyle, and they don't have that stress of I have to achieve, I have to be better than or make more than somebody else. So interesting perspectives and worldviews like that you see in other countries. Yeah. Again, I think it's one of the positive things about America, who we are, because it's made us successful and achieve, and there's some greatness that has come out of it. But at the same time, you have to check that at times and step back, take a deep breath. What am I doing this for? What is the actual end goal? Yeah. And take it from there. So
I love that.
Kasey, I want to go back and talk about when you're feeling this burnout, because, I've got to think you're at this advertising agency, you said, for 10 years. This is a couple of years ago. So you're still relatively young. You're still fresh face. And how old are you when you feel this first initial burnout? And were you amongst other peers who felt the same, or were you younger than other people in this growth trajectory? Tell me about that.
Definitely a lot of people feeling the burnout, and in different stages of it, I would say. If I ever start feeling, my biggest probably fear would be that when I start feeling complacent and stagnant is when I will really start itching to do something. And I was starting to feel complacent. I was starting to feel stagnant. And it was weird because I was making really good money at the time. Career, it was just one of those things where everything was just kind of laid out for me where I could see it. And it was just like, what am I doing this for too, was another thing of, am I just going to keep making this salary, just keep doing this, working these long hours for what? Looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to when I retire one day. So, I just started feeling that. And a lot of people around me definitely felt it. And some had to change, industries and careers, because advertising is very stressful in and of itself. Our Samsung account that we dealt with was even we always say another level above that. You're dealing with hardware and software. You're dealing in tight timelines. You're dealing on a global, level. So there's all these things that went into this account specifically. And so a lot of people were feeling it at different stages, I would say. But what's hard is that, and it was a tough decision even for me to make, to kind of get out of the cogwheel, because a lot of people have families, they have kids, and to take the risk and to feel the fear is a whole nother level, right, that you have to deal with when you're putting food on the table, you're supplying. And so it's hard. I think that a lot of people will just deal with it because they don't want to, face those fears and to step over to another side of something, whether it be a new career or even just a different account was even fearful for some people because it was outside of what they knew. So people dealt with it in different ways, and some people don't deal with it at all. And so, I would say that it was definitely all around me, and people would deal with it in a whole lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Kasey, we've talked with guests about just how people define success initially, which is typically a financial definition. And then how at some point they sort of reflect on wherever they are in life and think about success in different terms, in terms of time, in terms of having experiences with friends and family, and maybe sort of continuing to chase money, which is sort of an endless pursuit, maybe shouldn't be how we think about success. And coming back to your discussion around different cultures and having a global view, that might be in some ways more American than the rest of the world in terms of how we define success. I mean, it is a common denominator, I would say, across people to be able to think just mathematically, I have, this much wealth and I want to get to this much wealth, and it's in your face all the time. But what some of the things I love about especially European cultures is they really appreciate life, and some of the just having a good meal with friends in a beautiful setting and not thinking about, the nicest watches and cars and planes and lavish vacations and things like that. It's more about that sort of intimate experience.
Exactly. And I've thought about this a lot lately because I've obviously been in the pursuit and deep into startup culture and entrepreneurship world here in LA. But it's that some of your greatest times, that you have are those with your closest friends, with your family, doing things that don't cost that much money when you really think about it. So you do need to take a step back. Like my biggest thing is really for people to ask themselves, what do you want? And that's actually a really, really hard thing to define because it's like, of course, everybody would love to own a company and make money. And I have a lot of friends that have exited companies for, a lot of money. So I've been fortunate enough to kind of just see what happens on the other side of it. Not knowing what to do and not having a purpose is one of the most miserable things I think a man can have in his life.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and that's what you can have all the resources in the world. And if you don't have a purpose and if you don't know what you're doing with your life, you will be one of the most miserable people out there. So what is it that you actually want out of this life, just in general? Like, what do you want? What's your purpose? What are you going to, and some of that does require money and sometimes requires a lot of money, which is totally fine. But I think defining what it is that you actually want out of this life and what your purpose is one of the hardest things to do, but one of the most important things that you need to do. Then once you find that, then you can go out there and chase after that and achieve it no matter what. But defining what is that you want and what, and making money is not your purpose, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the tool that can help you achieve your purpose on whatever that is. But that cannot be your goal. If that's your goal, I've seen it so many times, you will be absolutely miserable human being.
Yep.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong. I'm chasing after money right now, for sure. I want to make money. We all should,
sure,
make a level of money. But if you are sacrificing everything, and if that is your end goal is just that money, that's where the problem comes in because that fulfillment won't be there for you at the end.
Yep.
Some of the things I want to do from a hobby level, from a personal level, all the different things require money or are going to require a good amount of money. But I also look at money as kind of like salt. It's just going to enhance what's already there. If there's more money, is more problems. If the problem's already there, it's for sure just going to make more problems because it's just going to enhance whatever's there.
Yeah.
If you have a purpose, if you have a vision, if you know what you want, then that money is going to enhance that. And I hope those people, are worth 9 figures and make all that money because they have a purpose and they're going to still be fulfilled. So I don't think it's bad at any time if anybody's like, I want to make a lot of money, I want to do this, it's great. Then what's your purpose that you want to do with it? And if it all aligns, then I think it's great.
Yep.
Money is like salt. It just enhances. I love that philosophy, Kasey.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, employee well-being benefits to help you and your people grow, and amazing discounts on travel, insurance, and IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today by searching IKEA Business Network.
Take us back to when you're feeling burnt out, you start traveling, and then your traveling's kind of winding down. Is that when you create Badmouth Candy or StewHouse Media? Which comes first, and how does that process start with you?
StewHouse, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and that's the next progression. So when I was working in advertising, I was a director. I was doing all the creative, and I would establish it. But then we'd hire out production companies, and people would come and do it. I had never really filmed on a camera before, had never really edited. I'd just been behind the editor's bay, and been next to the cameras. I could talk the language, but I didn't know technically how to do it. So when I traveled the world, part of what I wanted to do was to just expand my skill set. And I bought my first camera, just personal video camera, and I vlogged every day for the first 100 days and posted a video to YouTube, anywhere from a 5 to 15 minute video. There was two parts to that. One was that I wanted to document my trip that I was doing. I literally started filming myself selling my car, selling my furniture, and packing my first video on packing up my apartment. It shows the apartment getting drained out, my suitcase getting filled up, and I walk up and like, I just sold everything and I'm walking out. It's literally the day that I walked out and walked to the airport. So I wanted to document it. The other thing that I wanted to do is that because I'd been around it, I wanted to learn how to film and to edit.
Yeah.
And, this is kind of like the rise of, documenting what you're doing, do the storytelling where this started becoming really important. And I started seeing the shift. Gary V was very influential. Gary Vaynerchuk, very influential to me at the time. And I saw advertising shifting from the last shoot that we did was, a 7-figure shoot. We shot all this kind of stuff. And, I was thinking we spent, probably 1.5 million on this shoot to get a couple 30-second spots and make it into a 45-second spot, 60-second spot. I was like, we spent $1.5 million to get this 1 or 2 spots, right? This going on TV. And early on, like, this didn't really make sense, but you're starting to see this. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. If you spent that $1.5 million, and it was around the time that Kasey Neistat too, he got a deal with Nike, and he was supposed to do this big production commercial, and he ended up taking that money and traveling the world himself. And I don't really remember this old video, but Kasey just runs across the screen in a whole bunch of different locations around the world. I think he spent $50,000 and spent it on tickets and traveled. And so he's in these running shoes and he just runs across the screen and then stitches it all together. And it's him going through Africa and Europe and all these different places. And the video took off. It went viral. And I think he spent like $50-something thousand just on tickets instead of. And I was just thinking, you know what? We spent $1.5 million. I took some of if I had taken that money and done what I want to do. So I started seeing it all move that way.
Yeah.
So part of my travel was that I wanted to learn how to shoot and how to edit. So starting with day one, I shot this video. And what I would do is I would shoot during the day and try to come up with a mini storyline for the day. What's a mini story I could tell? That could be going to a location and filming something. It could be a cultural person I want to say, or just personally what I was doing, whatever. And so the first day, I shot a video all fully auto. And if you look at the video now, it's just funny to see because it's like all blowing out in the background. The focus isn't right. It was terrible. And my first video took me 8 hours to edit. And I won't forget, I forget where I landed first in Bali. And I got there, landed, I filmed everything for the day. I started editing at like 10 o'clock at night. It wasn't until about 6 o'clock in the morning that I was done with my first video. And it was only like a 5-minute edit. I wake up the next morning and I start filming again. And I upload it to YouTube, wake up the next morning, start it again. I was like, how can I keep this up? But the next video, it took me only like 7 hours to edit.
Okay.
The next video only took me, like 6.5. So I got better so much faster because I forced myself each day to shoot, edit, shoot, edit. I was YouTubing how to use stuff. So I learned how to shoot and edit. And by the end of obviously my travels, I uploaded every single day for the first 100 days. After that, I went to about 1 or 2 times a week and did all that. And then obviously, with the 7, I documented our whole, 7 continents trip and uploaded a video of that. So I learned how to shoot and edit. So now I have this skill set. So I have graphic design. I know big brand stuff, and I know how to shoot and edit myself. And when I came back from my traveling, I started StewHouse Media. Last name Stewart, StewHouse. And so started StewHouse Media. And, just living in LA, started meeting people, networking. And we were a, full service content agency. And, by this time now, it's even a couple of years later after I was done traveling. This is even when for a while with social media, celebrities were staying away from social. It was kind of like taboo, like, you're a celebrity and you're not going to, be like an influencer. But it was starting to shift. They were starting to build their personal brands on social. And I got connected in LA, met Zac Efron's brother who connected me with Zac. And Zac had a series on YouTube called Off the Grid. And he would leave LA, go camping, for 2 or 3 nights. And they asked me if I would come in. This was kind of like my style because I had done a lot of traveling videos, outdoor, landscape, and he wanted to go out to Mammoth. And so anyways, was able to work with Zac on a few projects and then just network people. And with StewHouse, I started working as well on, smaller brand, medium-sized brand work. And that's where I got my feet wet in consumer packaged goods.
Okay.
Brandon Cohen, he's the founder of Liquid IV, the hydration packets, if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
And I helped him build his in-house content team before he exited to Unilever. So I worked with him for the year leading up to it, filmed founder stories for him, brand stuff in their office, behind the scenes stuff, and then ended up hiring out a team for him as I phased out. It worked, continuously and kept that content ongoing. So StewHouse was that. And I got my feet wet with CPG. which, kind of led me into me starting Bad Mouth that I could talk about next.
Yeah.
I love.
Michael. I see you smiling.
Yeah. Is it fair to say, Kasey, that when you were able to leverage your advertising skills, and I do have a question about the whole advertising world because it's not sort of part of my domain expertise. But before I get to that, is it fair to say leveraging those skills and then jumping into video and editing, you sucked at first and you just got better?
Awful. Awful. And it was bad because obviously we did really high-end polished work.
Yeah.
And I was working with some of the, the best people in the industry when it comes to equipment, people, talent. And it looked so bad and it was so frustrating for me. And this is like another thing just for people that are listening as well, is that you don't get started because you think I'm going to be so bad, it's going to look so bad. It was even worse for me because I was known for this really good high-end polished stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, the first video I filmed, I didn't even know how to set exposure, frame rates, to do any of that kind of stuff. So my first video, the window's completely white and blown out and you know what I mean? It's all off. And so it was really, really hard for me to post that and to put that out because it's like the stuff I had been posting before was all the other great stuff.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing is for people for me, the biggest advice is always just to get started and do it and get to work and start and post. Because it's going to look bad for a while. Everybody's first video looks awful. And so you're never going to get better unless you start doing it. So anyways, yes, to answer your question, it looked awful and it hurt me even worse because I knew how it should look.
Yeah.
I had an eye for it, but I didn't know how to do it technically myself.
I love that answer. And I asked it because anybody listening who either has experience or doesn't have experience and wants to jump into something maybe different or adjacent to what they were doing. And John and I have talked about this coming out of tech and starting online media or leaving the military and starting a bunch of entrepreneurial ventures. You suck at the beginning again. And it's just part of the process. And I think if you have the right mindset to just, okay, I know it's going to suck and I'm going to jump into it, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to get better. It's like anything in life. The more time and energy and effort you put into something, you'll get better at it. You may not be perfect at it. You may not be world class, but you'll be better than you were a day, a month, a year ago. And it's cool to hear your journey, having had that experience and still trying something new and turning it into what you've been able to start.
For sure. I think it's Tony Robbins that says the quality of somebody's life is determined by how comfortable you can be with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I find that true every single day of of the startup life and what I'm doing. But even back to that, right? Of even when I was first filming too, holding a camera up and vlogging and talking was socially awkward.
It's awkward. Yeah.
Walking through a grocery store, walking through an airport and talking to it, I was uncomfortable, right? Yeah, every single day and and then what I'm doing now, I'm uncomfortable. You have to be able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
So the idea of it being, it's not going to look good, I'm not going to look right, all that kind of stuff. The quality of your life is going to be determined by how comfortable you can be with being uncomfortable. And that is outside your comfort zone, stretching yourself, pushing yourself. Those things that you don't want to do are the things that you're going to have to do if you want to do the things you want to.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. And we talk about, Kasey, we talk about being better 1% each and every day.
Yeah.
And it almost comes up on every episode. But what you were talking about earlier about filming and then it taking you 8 hours to edit, and then you film it again, it taking you 7 hours to edit, and 6 and 5, that is 1% better every day. But not only that is your content's getting better, your comfortability in front of the camera is getting better, your editing's getting better, the location of your shoots are getting better. So that literally is what we talk about on a weekly basis here. So
and think about this. This will give it in perspective. So if I had started traveling and thought, you know what, I don't want to film and I'm not going to post these videos because people know me from the high-end stuff and the work, and I don't want to degrade my personal brand because I'm used to high-quality stuff, and I didn't do it. You know what? For me, doing that and pushing against and being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and filming and posting and doing all that, it led me to work with Zach.
Yeah.
It led me to work with Patrick. Yeah. It led me to shoot Kate. So that is a very clear to me of if I had been you know what, I'm not going to do this because I just don't want to post because I'm going to be uncomfortable with what people are going to think about the quality of the work that I'm putting out. But I put out really shitty work in the beginning. And I actually love looking back at it now because I can see the progress all the way to where I progressed to where I was really good by the end, and I got to be really good at my own editing, really good at my own shooting, and it led me to work with Zach. That was like, it was incredible for my career and what it did and the doors that it opened and that kind of stuff. But it all came from me deciding to shoot those videos early on in traveling and the awful videos that I first posted. And it was only, I went from traveling, because I traveled for a year and a half, probably 2.5 years. I went from not knowing how to shoot and edit at all to being able to work with him. And that was just because I pushed through of like not caring about posting stuff that didn't look good for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And I am wholeheartedly a believer of that sort of perspective on things. And I love the way you've described your journey. And I know it's helpful for me just to hear you talk about it.
Yeah.
And I know it will be helpful to our audience for sure.
And Michael started a company earlier on called Start Something You Suck At. Is that right?
Do
Michael?
Something You Suck At.
Do Something
is the name of the company. And it sort of came about when I was in a larger company and there was this leadership, sort of group leadership development thing that was going on. The question I asked to the group was, if we never saw each other again, what advice would you leave me with before we left today? And one person said, do something you suck at. And it was just a call to action to just try something new, sort of get yourself in an uncomfortable position. This podcast being one of those things.
Yep.
And John working together, helping me, push me to put my voice out there and just talk about my own life, my own experiences. Because people have a natural tendency to be a little afraid of being judged from their peers, from family, friends, especially if it's something a little bit, out of the ordinary. But you just got to do it. And it's been just an amazing experience, the whole thing. And I don't know where it's going to go. I have zero idea. But I love the journey, and that's the best part of it.
That's right.
I love that. And it goes back to the uncomfortable part. And again, I listened to Tony Robbins a lot in my early 20s, and he said the same thing about being comfortably uncomfortable and to do like exercises of different stuff. And it was in Tulsa, actually, at Woodland Hills Mall, John. I went into the mall. I think he gave this as an example of something you can do. But I went down in a busy Saturday. It sounds crazy now. A busy Saturday. I think Dan Stone was with me. I don't know if you remember that name. But I went down there on a busy Saturday in the mall. And I laid down on my back, literally like this, put my arms down in the middle of the busiest kind of cross section in the mall and laid on my back because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And socially, if you think about it, right? Some people walked by, they like looked at it. Some people asked if I was okay. So many people reacted in so many different ways, but it was just a pretty simple exercise to try to break the pattern of being, within your comfort zones. And so I think, do something that you suck at. Because I think we create walls, we create our own barriers in this comfort world that we live in. And so to do something that you're not good at or something that you're uncomfortable with, I think is a huge step. And you're right. You can't ever connect the dots. I didn't know when I started filming I was going to be able to, and I didn't even know if I had an ambition to come back and film for the people that I did.
Yeah.
But I think, fortune favors the bold.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is a good one too. And so I think that when you step out, God, the universe, whatever you believe, I think it comes back to you, to the people that are bold and to the people that step out and to do something. So I think it comes back around.
Awesome.
I love it. All right, my second question, John, before you jump in, this will be an easy one. This will be an easy one for Kasey.
Yeah.
I know we're getting a little bit short on time. The second question I had for you was around your advertising experience and whether you're a fan or not of Mad Men. How close to reality is Mad Men to the real advertising world that you worked in? I'm just curious because
I do like Mad Men, and it is. And I would say it is fairly close. Now, that was very classic, traditional advertising, of course, for the period and the time it was.
Sure.
And just different culturally, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
But still very, very close in a lot of respects. And some of that legacy did carry over into we were obviously digitally focused and a lot of stuff like that.
Yep.
But as far as how it worked and stuff, there was definitely still some of that lingered in our agency and other agencies and stuff. But I loved Mad Men, and fairly accurate, I would say, actually.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kasey, take us from advertising to travel to starting your own entrepreneurial endeavors to StewHouse Media, now to what I thought was Suckers, I guess is now Badmouth. Talk. You're making candy. You're Willy Wonka. Tell us about that.
You guys are right on. And yeah, you followed the progression and the journey exactly right. So I have StewHouse. I'm working with celebrities. I'm working with small, medium-sized businesses. And I just started feeling like I was launching everybody else's brand. I was I saw Liquid IV go through their exit to Unilever. And I helped them do a lot of their marketing. I was helping other people launch brands and products and branding and marketing. So I started seeing and understanding the consumer packaged goods world. And, personally, there's a lot of things I want to do with my life. And scaling a creative agency is difficult in the sense that I would hire videographers, I would hire editors. And with social media now, you're scaling people, right? It's a services-based business. So you're scaling people. And with social media now, I'd hire a good videographer, say he's just out of school or even just out of high school or he's freelance, and pay him a decent salary. Just say I'm paying him, $6, $7, $8 a month. And then you have him for probably like 8 to 12 months before he realizes that he can go do one brand video that takes him a weekend and make that same amount of money. So he goes off and starts his own or freelances and stuff like that. So scaling creative people, I realized, was like, okay, I don't want to continue on this path of StewHouse and just scaling creatives because it's just a lot of churn, a lot of turnover. And even in advertising, I think the average shelf life of an employee at an agency is maybe 18 months.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of it. You bounce around a lot, 18 to 24 months. You bounce around a lot, agencies, different stuff. So I was like, I don't want to scale creative people. And I understand the consumer packaged goods world. I want to launch my own brand, my own product, and put all of my marketing efforts, all my branding, everything that I know. I had all these different pieces from my career now, and I want to launch my own brand. And I just saw a white space in the candy category. So if you think about it now, there's so many, brands that are being launched, so many people that are launching their own, and like alcohol is crowded, skincare and beauty. There's so many brands that you can name. Yeah. But there was nobody that was really making a big play in the candy space.
Interesting.
If you can think about it, can you think of a candy brand? Mr. Beast has launched Feastables over the last year and a half. But when I did this about 3 years ago, and even still, I would say that there's not very many people really making a play at this space. And then there was a company called Smart Sweets that kind of paved the way of these 92% less sugar, no sugar alcohol, healthier alternative to candy. And so I just saw the opportunity there. And I was getting the itch to want to launch my own brand in a category, saw the white space, nobody playing in it, and decided to somewhat just wind down with my current clients at StewHouse and went full-time and, raised capital and everything, went really big into the Better For You candy space. Yeah. And yes, it did launch as Suckers, SUCKERZ. We ran into a trademark issue, which I could talk about for a long time, but we battled it for a long time. Had a great IP lawyer. We could have kept fighting it, but he's like, it might just be best to pull the Band-Aid. We did, rebranded as Badmouth in April of this year, and we kind of like juxtapose our category, meaning it's like Better For You candy, and it's like, you've been putting bad candy in your mouth for a long time, bad ingredients, sugar's bad, so you have a bad mouth, but like we're good candy for your bad mouth. And yeah, we make all natural candy with up to 92% less sugar, none of the artificial stuff, and we basically recreate Hershey's products, but healthier.
Nice.
You're like the liquid death of candy.
Oh, nice.
That's actually spot on, and that's what we said this whole time, is that we want to be like the liquid death of candy and juxtapose the categories. The names of the brands in our category are very mom-focused, very, sweet, very nice, and we want to come in with the edge to it. We put an edge with our copywriting, our branding. But yeah, you're exactly right. We want to be the liquid death of candy.
Now, Kasey, Michael, I know you've got something. I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah.
Before you go any further, I want to highlight this that I just heard you kind of break down. I walk into a gas station with my 8 and 12-year-old boys, and there is a magnificent aisle filled with candy. And I can actually name a bunch of the candy bars and candy that they're into. But you just said, you look at that space and there's a lot of white space, meaning there's a lot of space to grow. And regardless of your perspective, I just want to highlight your desire to see openings in what I would think is a crowded space. And I know a coffee guy who says, no, a coffee market's not crowded. Look, I created my own coffee space. And, you're like, how can you compete with Starbucks and, Black Rifle and these other coffee brands? And I think that right there, Michael, is a perspective shift or just the mindset of somebody like Kasey who's willing to say, no. I see potential because I'm going to do it differently and I'm going to do it this way. It may be crowded or it may not be crowded, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go in with this position that's different. Therefore, it's blue ocean. It's evergreen. It's ready to be explored, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And, how we look at it is that Hershey's, Mars, Mondelez, they've been around for, over 100 years, a lot of them. And there's been very little innovation to their products to this day, if you think about it.
Yes.
And so, they're kind of competitors, but not really, because those kind of companies suck you up and like you're their healthier arm. And so we're in the better for you candy space. And most people can't name 3 brands that are in the healthier candy space. Yeah. Smart Sweets is the biggest, and most people can't even name the second biggest in the healthier candy space. And so that's where I see like the vision of people are looking for healthier alternatives to everything. Everything's being better for you, from sodas to chips to everything that you can think of has a healthier alternative now. And there's just very few people that you can name that are doing branding, marketing as well. Because a lot of people can name Smart Sweets, at least out here. Most people can't even name the second biggest better for you candy brand that's out there. And that's where I really see the actual white space of, if most people can't even name the second biggest, and if there was 4 or 5, 6 big players playing in this category, I'd still say that there's a bit of an opportunity because, there's going to be multiple brands and there will be in candy at some point, better for you candy, that are playing in the space. But that's how I see it, in that there's a target audience, target demographic that's looking for a healthier alternative. There's some that aren't, and those are going to continue to buy Hershey's, and they're going to continue to buy the full sugar and the cheapest option. But there's a big market out there of people that are looking for the lower sugar, all natural, without all the artificial stuff. And there's just very few people that are actually making product in that space right now.
Where do we find your candy?
Yeah, so you can obviously go to our website. It's badmouthcandy.com.
Yep.
We're on our biggest digital. We don't sell much digital. We're about 80% retail. Okay. But we're a TikTok shop has taken off for us over the last couple of months.
Okay.
So we're at Badmouth Candy on TikTok shop. But then retailers, we're in almost all TJ Maxx, all Marshalls, all Home Goods.
Okay.
That's hit or miss depending on if they have it in stock. We're in a lot of airport locations. So we're in a lot of airports along the East Coast, JFK, LaGuardia,
nice.
Washington, but a lot of those. We're in San Francisco's airport. We're in all Live Nation concert venues.
Okay.
In their concession stand. So they're starting to elevate their experience for their concert goers.
Very nice.
And they have a healthier snack options at their concessions. So we're there. Mother's Market's out here in Orange County, and just several hundred random independent grocers that have picked us up over the years based off of wholesaler site that we have. So yeah, we're about 3,500 doors right now.
Awesome.
Listen to these names, Michael.
Yeah.
Sassy Strawberry, Rowdy Raspberry, Guilty Green Apple, Wacky Watermelon. You look like a Guilty Green Apple guy.
Me? I think I don't know. I think I'd try the Sassy Strawberry.
Okay.
I'm a big strawberry fan, but I'd try them all.
These are our newest product that we just launched. It's like a Starburst pizza now later. I'll send you guys some
nice.
so you can try it. But yeah, it's all natural. It has some fiber in it.
Okay.
But traditional little chews right here.
Love it.
Long-lasting chews.
Now, Kasey, let's talk about, do you have a team now, or are you are you still an entrepreneur doing this by yourself?
All the jobs, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's still doing all the jobs. No, we have about 4 people on team, but the model that I've kind of set up right now, I have a co-founder as well, Tiana. She has a full-time gig that she's doing. So I've been full-time on this for about 2.5, almost 3 years now. Ever since we raised capital, I made sure I shut down everything else with StewHouse. Not shut it down. StewHouse still exists. And really all StewHouse stuff that I was doing and the resources and the network that I built, I actually just put into a lot of stuff and marketing that we do for Badmouth. But the model that I've done is a lot of fractional agency stuff. So we have a fractional CFO that we have that does all of our books and accounting for us. Fractional, like somebody who runs our Amazon account and agency there. So it's worked out well for us from a model to where we just have every need that I have. Instead of hiring a full-time employee at the point that we're at, we just go fractional with them until we reach a certain level where it makes sense to bring somebody in full-time in-house.
Yeah.
So we work with a lot of outside agencies for our different services.
Very cool.
So with
Very
that
cool.
with that model, Kasey, have you experienced any sort of unexpected challenges, or how help people sort of compare and contrast? If I'm thinking about hiring people for specific roles that are high need for my business, full time versus sort of on demand, or renting their services for your purposes for when you need them throughout the year, which isn't 40 hours a week.
Yep, for sure. Pros and cons, obviously, to both, I think. But I would say it's been net beneficial, I think, to go this path. Full-time employees, you're paying benefits. There's, you're obviously taking a risk on them too as well. Are they going to really pan out? You're onboarding. And when you start working with niche service-based businesses, they're specialists in what they do. They're really good. They have a history of other clients that they've worked with. So pros and cons, I would say, to both. Even just thinking about like an Amazon agency or like a performance marketer that's going to run all your Facebook ads, Meta ads, all that kind of stuff. I think eventually it makes sense when your business makes sense to have somebody in-house that solely focuses on your business inside and out. You're meeting with, on a weekly basis, in person together. That makes sense, I think, eventually. But when you are like at our stage, when you're still figuring it out, you're still, testing that to bring somebody on, full time this early on is sometimes a big risk. And is your business ready for it? Is it going to take off? Or as opposed to an agency, if it's not working out or if the performance isn't there, obviously if you're not in a contract, you can cut it off, you can shift and you can be fluid, which has been the best for us because we're still figuring it out. Like candy's a tough business. It's retail. Yep. We thought we were going to sell more D2C, quickly shifted, right after launch. We're like, okay, no, it's a retail-based business because we had a performance marketing agency that we were working with. If we had hired, we don't run Facebook or Meta ads right now. It doesn't make sense for us. Candy's like an impulse buy at checkout in retail. Like as much as you love Sour Patch Kids, as much as you love Starburst, I bet you've never ordered them online. Right? It's like if you see them in the store, if you need it, you just throw it in, no matter how good it is. So if I had hired a performance marketer to be on our team internally, then you're firing somebody, you're letting somebody go. It's a career thing. So that's like the positive, as opposed to an agency. We just said, well, we're not going to run ads anymore. We're cutting it off.
Nice.
All right, Kasey. So we have drained out of you a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom in your young 40-ish years of life. But we always leave our audience with something from somebody just like yourself who has gone from high-level career, very successful, title, money, everything that you're aiming for, to burnout and let's just get out of here. Let's not look in the rearview mirror. Let's go do something else. And we want to leave with our audience something that helps them if they're contemplating leaving what they're in, or they're just getting started. And you've already told us about just start and just do something you suck at and just get better 1% every day, like you did, vlogging. But what's one thing that you haven't mentioned that is kind of the cherry on top for those people that are thinking about the same transition like yourself?
For sure. I've thought about this a lot in trying to see like what does make people successful? What is it that's going to make this work? What is it that, make sure I have a magic ingredient that's going to work here? And I've read so much, read so many books, watched so many documentaries, met so many people that have done it, met so many people that have failed. And you see so many different types of people that have been successful. I've met fat people, lazy people, fit people that are all extremely successful, people that are actually not very intelligent. And you can actually see some really, really successful that are not that intelligent. Yeah. But there's one common denominator that I've been able to see in everybody that's successful. And you could put it in a lot of different words or terms, but it's perseverance and never giving up. Yeah. And I can't tell you, this has been starting this company in business, Badmouth/Suckers, has been one of the hardest things, right? And I was prepped, right? You talk to so many people. It's like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I did not know how hard it was going to be and how many times you do want to say, is this even worth it? And I want to throw in the towel. But how bad do you want it? I think is what comes down to it. And the perseverance and never giving up and figuring it out. If you want it bad enough, and I do feel like there's this barrier that's there that is put there by the universe, by God, by whatever it is that you believe that there's a barrier. Because if it was, I always go back to this, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Everybody would love to own a company that is doing, 8-9 figures in revenue and then sell it to somebody and then go live that dream life. Everybody would. If it was easy, everybody would do it, and then that wouldn't really exist anymore. But it really is perseverance and never give up. And everybody that I've talked to, like I said earlier, some people wake up early, some people wake up late, some people cold plunge, some people don't. Some people are actually lazy that I know that have done really well. But one thing that is the common denominator is that they all went through many, many times where it seemed like it was going to fail, seemed like it was going to fail, seemed like it wasn't working. And they figured it out. They never gave up. They persevered. And so it really is perseverance is the one thing. And so it does go along with, like, there's kind of like 3 things I would say is that just do, like Nike's slogan to me, and Nike is probably my favorite brand that exists out there. Just do it.
Yeah.
So just get started. Don't wait for a perfect time. Just do it. Never give up, because you never fail unless you give up. And then always keep balance and perspective, like we talked about earlier, because it's very easy, especially living out here in this culture. The west side of LA is like CPG startup mecca. And so it's very easy to get caught up into grinding nonstop, doing this and head down and not pulling your head up and saying, okay, wait, what am I doing this for? Find some balance. Find your North Star. And that's why I really do think going back to never giving up, asking yourself why you're doing this is one of the most important things, because it's going to get hard and really, really hard. And you always have to go back, but wait, I'm doing this because, and then that is what can help you drive you through that and you get through it. And perseverance is the one common denominator I've found in some of the most successful people that I know.
And Nike's new slogan for the Olympics, if you haven't seen it, is winning isn't for everyone.
I saw that. It's great. I love it.
Which that's baller when you talk about perseverance, because not everybody has perseverance. And you have clearly exuded that in your stories that you've told today, from travel in 7 continents in 92 hours, in, your perseverance with your startup marketing, starting up candy company, traveling. So, man, I love that you love the Nike slogans, and that one just came out, and I'll say that one's
I used to say I wanted to learn a martial art, and I would say that all the time. Like, I'd love to learn a martial art. It used to be karate. Now it's like jiu-jitsu. The truth of it is I don't, because I don't want to go through the training to do it all. That's like the truth when it boiled down to it. On the outside, I would love to have the skill.
Sure.
I want to have, if you could program it for me to have the skill, phenomenal. I love the idea of that. I actually don't want to, because I don't want to go through the training and the years and the belts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I've stopped saying it. It's like, I actually don't, because if I really wanted to, I would do it.
Yep.
I do really, really, obviously, I love being an entrepreneur. I love building. I love creating. I love growing. There's a creative side of me. Like, that is ingrained in me, deep inside of me. I want to have resources to do the passions, the hobbies, and the mission stuff that I want to do and different stuff. Deep down, I really, really want that. And so that's what makes me persevere through this. If I were to get into martial arts, no, I don't really want that. But I used to say that all the time. And that's a good perspective. Like, do you really, really want to do this? Is a good thing to ask, because it's like, no, you want the end result.
Yeah.
But what it's going to take to get there is so hard. And so you have to make sure it's deep inside. But like, I can tell you with my core that, like, I really, really, really want to do this. And so that's what drives me, and that's my perseverance to help me get to the end. But like, I give it in perspective in my own scenario into martial arts, because I like UFC as well, that I don't want to learn mixed martial arts, because I don't want to go through all the training and do all those other things that I want to do. So I stopped saying it. So
it's great.
I'm with you.
Kasey, what's the best place for our audience to find you or your businesses if they want to explore more about Kasey Stewart and Badmouth Candy and StewHouse Media?
For sure. So personally, I'm at Kasey, at Kasey on Instagram.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to see some of the YouTube videos that I talked about from the traveling, and even the 7 continents video is on my YouTube, which is YouTube.com/Kasey Stewart, KaseyyStewart. And then for Badmouth, if you want to try some candy, you can go to badmouthcandy.com. We are on TikTok. If you just type in Badmouth Candy, it'll pop up as well. And then, if you're close to a TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, some of those retailers, then sometimes they carry stock, sometimes they sell out. It's always a little cycle, but you can find us in stores at a lot of those places.
Awesome.
Love it.
I got to get John in a TikTok video. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet.
Maybe we'll be tasting bad mouth candy.
That'll be our first TikTok video, maybe. I don't know.
I'll send you guys some for you guys to try.
I love it. I love it. Well, Kasey, one, it's great to see you again, man. I know it's been a long time. We'll connect after the show offline, but in super inspirational stories.
Yeah.
And I love the journey that you have been on. I love the journey that you're on, and I love your passion and your tenacity and your perseverance. So thank you for sharing that with us today. And I think this has been a phenomenal episode. Thank you for coming on and giving us your time. It's been great.
I love aviation, by the way. It's kind of my escape.
Yeah.
Is airplanes.
Let's do it.
And so I see,
Awesome.
and I think I had seen some stuff on social about you and aviation. So I would love to chat with you some more about it.
Got to get you a private jet, baby.
That's the goal. That's the goal. I actually like backcountry bush planes. Obviously, I want a jet for like travel, but I like backcountry bush planes.
Nice.
Like STOL airplanes, short takeoff and landing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we can do that too.
All right.
Well, Michael, what do you think, man?
Yes. Amazing episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kasey, thank you so much for coming on. This was an awesome discussion. Learned a lot talking to you and gaining some new perspectives on a whole different bunch of areas. So this was fun.
Likewise, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a great one, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Michael, see you again next week. And man, keep up the 1% growth. See ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballenger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.